It's season 4 and it's a fresh new episode series for us. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Enlightened Conversations, where each week we invite guests to share their views on the world, work and their personal lives in an enlightened way. Our hosts have been chosen especially to role model just how we do an enlightened conversation. Today's episode is hosted by Michelle Lightworker.
Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here and welcome to Enlightened Conversations. I have the delightful Leanne, Barefoot Medium, joining me today. Hey Leanne.
Michelle, so glad to be here.
So good to have you on, and we are going to be discussing all things 11Gateway activation today. So we'll get into that in a minute. I will just introduce Leanne, if you don't already know this wonderful being. She has been a good friend of mine for many years now. She's worked with me on Soul TV. We've done Enlightened Conversations in the past together. She's also been one of our wonderful hosts, and she's an independent medium who works internationally. She works as a coach, as a trainer for mediumship. She's an author of, I think it's 4 books now, isn't it, Leanne? Got her own card deck. And she is just awesome, an awesome person to know and be in the vibration of. So thank you for joining me, Leanne.
Thank you.
And I'm just noticing that your sound is a little bit delayed. So I'm not sure if it's me being too loud or just a little bit delayed. Yeah, it is. I couldn't hear you just then. That's interesting. Okay. Well, we'll see if we can figure that out as we go. We've encountered a few little interesting things this morning, haven't we, Leanne, with
we have.
this? So
tech glitches.
Yeah. It's interesting because when we're talking gateway, we're talking, for me, portals of activation of energy, right? Or energy flowing through, where there can be blockages, where there can be things that need clearing. And I've got just started. You might hear it in the background, which is fine because hopefully we can block it out. But I've got some cleaning the floor going upstairs, and we had somebody come into our Zoom call and joined us randomly that didn't show themselves. So this is kind of interesting for the topic, isn't it?
It is, and with the 11 Gateway in particular, there's lots of big energy going on. We've also just had the beautiful big full moon and eclipse.
Yes.
So there's lots of that clearing out. There's lots of people experiencing external energies that might be universal and or from other people in their world with projections that might be coming at them. So it's interesting that we had someone drop in energetically to the call.
Yeah, and I've got to share this with you because usually, right, things like this really aggravate me. Like I would be panicking right now about doing a podcast with something like that going on, and I was like, no, it's all fine. I don't know, it was the weirdest peaceful feeling. And when that person dropped in, I'm like, oh no, it's just Leanne, she's getting ready. And okay, it wasn't you, but from my point of view, it was just at peace with it. And I think sometimes when things come into our space, and I know for me, because I've been an empath, as have you, all our lives, we feel aggravated and we feel tense, we're annoyed, and yet there is things passing through our space all the time. And what has happened today for me is the message that I haven't been aggravated, and that's very unusual for me.
And I think there's we're talking about gateways and doorways or portals or however you want to explain them. It's just that beautiful big shift of energy is like an opening to some newness that is there for us to step into, whether it's, letting go and surrendering more, which is what you're explaining, is noticing something coming into our space and being able to more cleanly and clearly and easily surrender to that and go, yep, it's good, it's fine, it'll flow, it'll come out, rather than going, oh my God, what is that? And really digging into that human self that analyzes and logics and wants to figure stuff out, right? Rather than going, our soul self is so in tune with this energy that's coming in, and for each of us that may be different, that our soul self knows the truth of what's going on.
Yeah.
And we know that it's not something we need to dig into or analyze or pick apart and work out.
Exactly.
Our soul self just goes, yep, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to trust that that'll flow out when it needs to flow out, or it'll stay for me to be able to get some insight and understanding and awareness around, rather than that old way of being.
Exactly.
So
Getting up into our head.
Yeah, I love that you brought surrender into the conversation.
Oh, it's big time. And I got to laugh, okay, because I know you're big on manifesting too, like, and helping people manifest, right? Well, I've been saying to my hubby, like, we live in this apartment for the last year and I love it. But the only thing that's been a little bit is the gym. And because the gym's fine, it has a treadmill, a couple of bicycles, some old kind of equipment, and they've been talking about upgrading it for the last year. And I'm like, yay, I hope we get a CrossFit. Yay, I hope we get a CrossFit, because that'll be fun, like guess what we're getting? A CrossFit. And that's the gym being renovated upstairs that I've been asking. I've been asking Spirit, come on, bring on a new gym, and it's happening. And so I'm not complaining.
And it's really interesting that, manifesting in particular, when we talk 1111, the one number is all about alignment and oneness and union and, coming back into that wholeness, and that, there is no separation of our manifesting ability can be instant. If we're aligned and we're connected in with our soul self and with the universe and source, and we plug in, right? And so there's this huge portal, this huge gateway of energy that, if we allow it to, can really increase our ability to manifest instantly.
Yes. And I think I love what you're saying, because when we're at one, we're sort of naturally in the channel, like we're really the tuning fork of the cosmos, and we're just in tune and it just flows through. And I feel like, I love what you're doing on Barefoot with Spirit Radio. I was just having a look at it, a bit more of a deep dive into it before talking to you, because I was like, I'd like to know what you're doing. And I love how you create space to be open and honest and upfront, that a lot of it is channeled, because that's how I work too. And you and I are very, very similar in that way. We're very systematic about knowing what we need to do so that it feels authentic and it feels real. We know that we've got systems in place to do that. But because when you turn up and you're in that one, at one space with Spirit, what happens is things that you or I wouldn't think about just pop through. And so we're just open to so much more information. You're not thinking our way there. And that's how I channeled the Lightworker practitioner training. That's how you've channeled a lot of your training and a lot of things that we do. Why we can turn up to things like with Soul TV and things on platform, and not be afraid, just be, because that fear goes away, doesn't it? When you're in that channel, the fear is not there. It isn't for me.
It's not for me either. And I think that, if I talk a little bit about mediumship side of things,
Definitely.
As a medium, and I'm passionate about that, is when I connect in and do my process, it's instant, they're there, I trust in that. And it is about becoming one with Spirit and allowing them to communicate through me, and stepping my human self, my ego self, my fear-based self to the side to go, if I allow that to come in, then it's going to separate me from source, divine, spirit, soul, and result in some unclear or some bumps, I guess, in the channel. And so I often describe to people with mediumship, if your human self or your fear-based self or your doubtful self comes in, it's like having a straw above your head and it's got a big chunk of food stuck in it.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So we are, in terms of channeling or connecting in with spirit or divine source, whoever it is you do that with, we have to become one with spirit. Otherwise, we're putting our own stuff in amongst it.
Yes. And when our little chunks of stuff, debris of self come through, if we've got enough of our higher self on board to look at it lovingly and say, oh, just look, it's natural. Sometimes we're in a reading and something reminds us of our past or our present or what have you, and we've got a little trigger there, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'm noticing that, and I'll unpack you in a little while. Thanks for coming on board, and I'm noticing you, but I'll deal with you in a little while. Have that moment of compassion for self, for that happening. Absolutely.
And I think that's really important to acknowledge, is that our human self, our ego self, our fear self is there for a purpose. It serves us. It's not separate from us. And our soul self, our divine self, our higher self, whatever you want to call it, is there as well. And we can access both at any given time because they are a part of our wholeness and our being. And, our awareness of when we're speaking or when our human stuff comes up is the key to being able to heal or transform or move through or manifest whatever it is that we are desiring or wanting to bring in, whether it's an energy or a physical thing that comes into the world. And it's okay to be in your human self some days. You can have a human day. Why not?
Absolutely. I have them. Yeah, I have them too. Yeah, I love my human self, to be honest. Because it's quirky. I think people's human self makes us fun and different and unexpected. That's cool. Like, I mean, I appreciate my higher self. I love my higher self, but I have kind of a lot more fun when I'm just letting myself bubble along. And probably my higher self drops in more often when I'm doing that, because it's that oneness. Coming back to that oneness again, because when you're at peace with all of you, you are more open to being in that channel, I believe. Things come up, they get processed, and you notice them. Things don't stay in the way, and you're just sort of evolving along your day. And what I have found recently has been, after stepping back from 4 years of being inside of businesses and now coming back into working for myself in a way that I'm not working, I'm just turning up and doing what I would call my next spiritual assignment is. I find that just bubbling along like that, I'm honestly, Leanne, I've got so much coming through. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I've had to, thank God I've got the phone that I can write down. And I know it's a full moon and all that. And maybe it'll just be quiet. Maybe there'll be less coming through till the next full moon. I'm not sure, but I don't really mind. But what's happening for me is I'm capturing everything that's coming through. I've got the space, I've got the time, and that's showing me so much around when we're present and we don't have a lot of stuff and busyness there. There's just so much that comes through that you couldn't think your way to. I mean, I'm in the shower and things are dropping and I'm going, crap, I've got to jump out of the shower, quickly write them down. Or I'm actually educating myself on talking to Siri and saying, Siri, please take a note, because I've got wet hands or what have you. So it's an interesting time for me with this gateway coming up.
And I think that you've mentioned a couple of things in amongst that a lot of people will be called to do as we step through this next energy gateway, this next period of transformation, because that's what a gateway is, really. It's about inviting change within us and outside of us in the things that we're doing. And the 1111 in particular is a reset button to put us back on our divine path.
Yeah, interesting. I was reading that. I'll read this little bit out because for everybody, because they understand what, because Leanne's actually holding a gateway activation that you can attend on the 11th of the 11th at 11:11, and so on that little description it says 11:11 gateway activation is where you're invited to consciously step through this potent cosmic doorway as healing, higher awareness, and expanded states of consciousness pour in from spirit to guide and assist you to realign with your divine path, help soulmates and twin flames align with each other, support you to embody your higher self and highest divine expression of love so you can truly live in synchronicity and manifest your desires. So, yeah, it's really super special, really super special. For me at the moment, I feel I'm it's all happening.
And you and I have done some work in the last little while to let go of and release some things that we were in the doingness of that was part of our path for a little bit. And it's interesting that we're now getting called to realign with some other aspects of our path. And what I want people to know is that your path is your path. It's always there. You're never not on it. Sometimes you might just take what you perceive to be a detour. And it might be to collect knowledge and wisdom and insights so that you can then step further into your divine path. And sometimes we don't even know what that is until later on. And totally. So it's okay to be where you're at because your path is below your feet.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's all a spiritual assignment. But I must admit, this one's a nice, this is a nice one that I can particularly appreciate more now that I've returned to it than I did before, because what I've realized is that my natural state of being is being a channel in that moment. Like, that's my natural state of being. And when I have things, because my personality likes structure, when I have things that I'm focused on for structure, I gravitate towards those because that's my personality. So that's interesting, isn't it? So my natural state of being is more a channel where my gifts pop out of me and just go, I don't know, just magic happens. But I love structure. So that's a little bit of insight into, I don't even know if that's a conflict. No, probably not a conflict. I just need, when I remember recovering from workaholism and back in my 20s where I was really busy all the time. And one of my recovery tools was create a structure of 2 hours on a Saturday morning where I do nothing, like that I have nothing planned at all. And it was the best 2 hours of my life. So there's an example of how structure and being an open channel go hand in hand together.
And you and I are very similar in that way. I'm also a Virgo who loves structure. I love a good plan and all of those things. And I'm also a channel who I love channeling the way I do. Like, we stepped into the conversation today with me going, what's the topic? What are we doing? I don't know. Let's see where we go, right? And so there's aspects of ourselves which can appear to be in conflict or opposites. And yet that's where that wholeness and fullness and unity comes in, because they can exist in the same place. And I'm just reflecting on a client session I did before where what came through was confusion and clarity exist in the same space.
Wow, that is amazing. I love that. And often that happens, isn't it? When we've done a reading, or everything's part of what I understand and more of now as I've walked the path of being a psychic and a reader and a medium and all those things, is everything's part of the reading the whole day. So or the day before, or the dreams. So, it is a bit of an art working out what was speaking to you about what. But you having that reading with that person saying that the chaos and certainty, was it? Chaos and certainty?
Confusion and clarity.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah,
Confusion and clarity are both exist in the same thing. Wow. That's amazing. That's just another confirmation, isn't it?
It is. And, all of those things, the universal law of balance talks about we cannot experience one thing without knowing the other.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot experience the fullness of what love is without experiencing what fear is, because we wouldn't know what love looked like, sounded like, or felt like if we didn't know what the opposite was.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why I'm in so much gratitude now, because some of the things that I've been exposed to the last 4 years, which are great education, and I'm so grateful for, we're just so 180 degrees away from what's normal and healthy for me. I'm going to probably make an episode on this, but I wanted to ask some of my team leaders and my managers at the time if they considered me meditating about my job and getting the answers that I needed and doing all the preparatory planning as a HR manager for training at 3 o'clock in the morning, if they consider that to be clocking on.
Wow, that's an interesting concept, right?
Yeah, because that's when I would do it. I'm doing it on Spirit's time, when the gateway is maximum, right? Is it because I've had nothing in my head for a while and my body's just more receptive and I'm getting the information halfway through the night? So that in itself can change the way I'm learning so much about how I used to work that I wouldn't even think about. Like, oh yeah, I'll get up in the morning, maybe write a few notes, 3 in the morning, go back to sleep. But that's part of my work.
And I want to pick up on what you talked about with managing that structure and that doingness in amongst the being and the letting things flow, right? Because I think what a lot of people are in is that doing mode and having to be busy, or that stress pattern, really. And if they're not in that, it doesn't feel like they're contributing or worthy or succeeding even. And I love how you talked about, having to create that space for yourself for a couple of hours to just be and do nothing, because what we're often taught is that it's being lazy or you're not focused or you're not motivated or whatever. It's seen as a negative, whereas there's a lot of action happening in the resting and the being. Especially for those of us that are channels or that do the spiritual work or the healing work on ourselves and for others as well, right? There's lots going on under the surface while someone may be looking like they're being lazy or unmotivated.
Yes. I have to stop myself from doing things so that I can recover from the power of the information that comes through sometimes. Just stop and just go rest.
Really, particularly around big full moons and eclipses and gateways and those sorts of things, because the sensitives, the intuitives, the empaths that are out there that may not be as conscious yet of what they do and how they feel things, the energies can come in a really big way. And funnily enough, another lady I had this morning was talking about high-pitched ringing in her ears. And I said to her, you can ask them to tone that down a little bit, don't you, and make it less intense. And she went, oh, really? Can I do that? And I said, yeah, you can ask them to bring it in more gently.
Yep.
And she went, oh, okay.
Yeah. So you're in control of the tune and the volume. Yep.
That's
exactly.
it, right? And I think that, when we're first coming on to a spiritual journey or connecting in with those types of abilities, and it is an ability that we need to nurture and develop, that we give our power over to spirit being more than us. And the reality is we are also spirit.
We're everything.
We're everything. We are soul, we are spirit, we are divine, we are human, we are in our physical body for a reason. And we are able to ask for things the way that it makes us feel comfortable as well.
Definitely. Oh, absolutely. I think it's
to feel uncomfortable with energies that are coming in. And that was an old way that I used to be.
Just take it how you get it. And you don't have to. You can. And like, number one, they need an invitation. So that is within our control. And then if that person that you were having the reading with has actually asked to have her psychic abilities increased, well, they're giving it to her. But, then number two, the second bit of that is moderating that reality and taking ownership for that process yourself and saying, I am learning how my gateway is open, how much I'm allowing in and how much I'm able to cope with at any given time. And that's okay. There's no judgment in that. Our bodies can only do what they can do in this lifetime with the amount of time we have, and I guess you could say the genetics and everything that we've chosen as well, just to have some mindfulness around and some compassion around how much your body can do, or your mind, your energy, whatever you want to call it, all three, all of that.
And I think that you've mentioned something really important there, is that we are an individual channel that works differently from every other individual channel. There is no one size fits all. And I think that that's really important for people to remember.
Diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, right. Because, particularly in training people and guiding people in how to open up to their mediumship abilities in particular, I often have people that are taught that they must do this and they must do that. And I remember one client I worked with was told they had to sit in silence for 10 hours before they could connect in. And I'm like, what?
Man.
What do you mean? Like, that's just a process that would, wow, if I had to do that, I wouldn't work.
Man, I'm too ADD for that. My beginnings was show me a yes or show me a no. That was it. And I'd say, see, nice, quick, short and fast.
Exactly. And so, I think that we've got to remember that spirit will work with us in terms of our humanness and our personalities and our way of being and our knowledge bank as well. And another client who's been a reader for a long while and been hesitant to step into her mediumship, the way she loves food, everything's about food. And so she's got them in the spirit world sitting down at a table and there's a maitre d'.
Oh,
and I'm
lovely?
Like, awesome, that works. And she's gone,
so
yep,
awesome.
They get a number. And I'm like, yep, great. Spirit will work with you that way.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we remember that oneness, and that 1111 is all about oneness and unity and coming back to wholeness. Is our humanness and our spiritual side are meant to work together.
I agree.
Meant to work together.
100%. And I've lately been feeling that, and I might do some work on this and maybe even some skits on it. I'm not sure if I'm brave enough. Let's see what happens, eh? But it would be fun. But I was just having some feelings around our energy centers, and I believe that, like, our energy centers, they're like portals individually, like uniquely, like we talk about, and they have their own unique states of being. And they, like, say, for instance, your throat chakra, helps us to speak our truth and to speak out. And yet if it's closed down, it's not an island. So it's got its own uniqueness, but then it affects all of the other chakras and it feeds them. It feeds them the ability to speak or express themselves. It's got this sort of like, they've got this relationship that's going on. And so I just, when it comes to this gateway activation, being at 1, I think it's important to be open to receiving whatever helps your all your combinations to come together as one as well. What are your thoughts on that?
And that's part of the activation and the realignment and the readjusting and the coming back to center, right?
Yes.
So some of us may be challenged or walking through some stuff around I don't know what's come up today for other people is betrayal and abandonment stuff, right? And some people may be walking through some security or finance stuff, right? Others might be, like you mentioned, the throat and the speaking up and being authentic with what we need, want, and desire in life. And that can be a real challenge for some people to do that. And this particular gateway will pick up on where it is that your soul is ready to bring in some new awareness and some new insights and some new understandings that will allow that center, that energy center that those things might sit in, to come back into ease and balance and flow.
Yeah, because my experience is if you address 1, like just say, you're allowing that to come into the one that needs the most help. And but when that happens, it affects all of them. It's like, you heal one and all of the rest go, oh my God, thank you so much. I've seen this. It's like this domino effect. You heal one, and then all of a sudden, if you check in with the other ones, like, oh yeah, no, I feel so much better, or at least I can be heard now, or something happens for them. I like that because there's always like something that for us to welcome in, and we don't have to know it all like at once. Basically, we can just take our time and be at peace with that.
So what's popping in amongst you saying that is that confusion and clarity live in the same space.
Perfect.
Confusion would be that crown chakra and maybe sometimes the third eye, depending on what's playing out for someone, right?
Seeing distortion.
Yeah. And so, if we've got that crown chakra that's in that energy of confusion, that is a doorway in and of itself. That is a gateway in and of itself. And what we're being invited to step into is more clarity.
Yeah.
And so if we're able to recognize confusion and accept it, because it's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just I feel confused and that's okay. What I need right now is more clarity. Awesome. That
yes,
opens
exactly.
the space. That's where that surrender comes in that instance, right? I feel confused and that's okay. That's your surrender.
Yeah.
Rather than I feel confused, I wonder what's going on, I don't know how to fix this.
Or
right.
Exactly. Or I shouldn't be feeling confused. And then there's a judgment, whereas hang on, the confusion could be, like you said, an invitation to invite some clarity in, not something that we should be adding another dump of angst to, which would really close the portal, like close the gateway, shut it down, and instead of opening it up, say, hey, I don't know, letting out some of this chaos and confusion, please, so I can have more clarity. And then as we're also letting go and surrendering, like you said, it's like then we're also we've got space to let that clarity in.
Exactly right. And so, I think this is a beautiful time to remember that, we talk about a gateway energetically. Yes, that's what it is. And we are energetic beings. So, of course, there's gateways within us.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
And so, further confirmation of we are one with source and universe and the divine.
Yes. And so in terms of preparation for this gateway, from what we've been talking about, I guess anybody listening could, and this doesn't have to be on the 11th, I mean, it's great that we have a nice amplifier of this gateway energy, but it can be any time that we feel like we need to make this shift. We can invite this energy in, and all we need to do really is be willing to check in with ourselves, ask ourselves what we maybe have going on. It might be a sort of wobbly tummy. It might be a bit of pain, emotional pain, or we might have just had something happen. You just need to say, I'm willing to surrender this and let in we can even say the solution if we don't know what the solution would be.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good one to remember, is that, where the problem exists, the solution also exists, the same thing. And so again, if you're not sure or uncertain, it's just about going, okay, show me the solution. Show me the way, and asking that and allowing it to come in and just surrendering that. And, what people can do in preparation or in the lead up to, or now or afterwards even, is just to take a moment to gift yourself some space. To go, it might be 10 minutes, it might be half an hour, it might be an hour, it might be half the day, a whole day, whatever fits and feels right for your world. Gift yourself the space to make a conscious choice and decision to allow in whatever it is that is in your highest and best and most divine good to step into and allow in right now.
Love that. There's so much power in stopping and inviting and letting the magic happen.
We cannot manifest without asking. So we cannot receive energy without inviting. And so, we can't feel others' energy without an invitation somewhere where we've allowed it. So
that's
why
right.
not be conscious and present of what you're inviting and what you're allowing in?
Why not?
Do
indeed.
that in a really empowered way.
I love that. And are you feeling like for you, this gateway energy is supporting you to align more with where your next step on the journey is?
I've made some big choices and decisions in the last probably month in the lead up to, and it's interesting when you get called to host an event like the gateway activation. You tend to walk through that energy first.
Oh, totally, don't you? Yeah. It's always for us, isn't it? It's like whatever we do, it's always for our healing. That's what I say to people. You can't do anything wrong. If you feel like you need to do something, just do it, because you'll benefit.
Exactly. And so, with my business in particular, there's been some things that have served me for the last couple of years that I've been offering and making available to people that I've made a decision to stop.
Yep.
Because I want to do more work in a different area. And so,
creating space.
Created some space there. I've I've got lots of my fingers in a lot of different pies, and was doing some teaching last trimester at uni.
Yep.
And I stepped out of it this trimester just to gift myself some space.
Yep.
So, I'll step back into that next year sometime. It just feels like a little bit of space for me at the moment, and some completing of some energy loops that might be left open, whether that's healing wise, whether that's projects. There's some things I want to finish off.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, because I think, I think there's just so many ripples that happen. Like we often wait till life is perfect before we make those choices, but sometimes we do need to carve out that space and that time, and then the ripples happen. And often they happen to our family. I was just talking to Anne last week, and we were on a call for Enlightened Conversations, and like literally at the end of the call, and we're talking about being all that is, and we are the manifestation of all it is. We've got to mind our own vibration. And she was talking about how she's now not living, she's living with her mum, taking care of her as another step towards her journey, a little bit like what we're talking about, where we're letting go of things. And then anyway, so at the end of that call, literally, I kid you not, her mum had a fall. She's fine, but it was like a confirmation of things accelerate. The nurse was there, all that jazz, it was fine, but it was like, it's just things accelerated the next day too. And often I feel like our family, like my mum passed last year, as you know, and my brother, 4 years before that. And it's like, well, I'm apart from my dad, who's in his 80s, who's working as a caretaker on a shanty mission. Like he's like totally in the spiritual, beautiful energy. I don't like, I've just got, my daughters are, pretty much wrapping things up with their unis and all that. And I've just got kind of me, I guess, to focus on. And I'm kind of looking at the sort of ripples around us to, when we do something, things accelerate. I know that. But also then you have to kind of look at the space that you have carved out and go, how am I going to fill that with being in the best alignment to where I'm going to grow and contribute at the same time. For me, it has to be both. I can't really see at this level even not needing to do things for the money or anything like that, where I can separate myself from growing and contributing. And so it kind of feels like that ripple effect happens when we make the choices, but also to prepare us for those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a chat about this yesterday. My parents have got some health issues that have come up and that they've been moving through, and it's meant that I've had to create some extra space to be able to step in and support as well. So
yeah, that's right.
By me letting go of some other things and creating space, it's allowed me to be able to step into that, which for me, it's really important to, why I do my business the way I do is have that flexibility. And for me, in the next couple of months in particular, I want to really focus in on doing some writing and finishing some courses and programs off that have been sitting there for a long while, so that I can complete those before my partner gets here, and we can create space for some more fun and joy and playfulness, which has been a little bit missing for me.
Yeah, and it's like, I can see it. And probably people listening too, like, being told to kind of create some space, finish these things up, then because this is going to happen, and then you want to be available for that fun stuff. And so it's all in your highest good.
I'm really mindful and aware that I've got probably about a month and a half to really focus in on getting some of those things completed.
Yeah, awesome. That's good. It feels nice. It feels like there's just a bit that you've given yourself a bit more of that space to make everything flow better. And sometimes it's not necessarily, because you're probably a bit like me, like we'll do as much as we possibly can all the time. And sometimes it's about going, how about I treat myself a bit kinder amidst, not the fact that I couldn't do it all every single thing, because we could. But it's actually more about how can I get to enjoy that a bit more, rather than just be in that sort of more focused mode. When you're yin and yang, sort of like focus. What is it? Super focus. I tend to love that. So I have to, so I have to kind of, you're good at that. You can't do that all the time. So just enjoy yourself.
And it's really interesting that, self-care is so important at the moment. And when we're in that doing and that hyper focus mode, that we sometimes forget to gift ourselves that space. And it's needed, it's necessary, it's a requirement. It's not a wish or a want. It's actually a requirement. And I'm reminding myself to do that. And have, consciously structured that in.
Yeah, good on you.
Around stuff. And it's really important that we do.
I think, look, I'm going to speak to this because people probably are aware of it. They just haven't put two and two together. I don't know. But after activations or leveling up or retreats, usually the body goes through stuff like a catching up period, like where, oh God, I'm exhausted. Why am I so exhausted? Or I wasn't exhausted during the thing. Why am I so now? Or it's like your body is actually I think we're changing our DNA, to be honest. I think we're rewriting our whole chemical genetics. We're transforming our being on a physical level. So why wouldn't we be exhausted? So I think there's a natural flow on that.
We're integrating the new energies that we've done the work to transform, right? And we're integrating what we've learnt, the insights, the awareness, the energy that's come in, and we need to let that anchor in.
That's right.
And I think we forget sometimes, and we keep doing until sometimes we get stopped to make us sit and be and let that happen. And so it's really important to take that space and gift yourself that space to be able to let those new energies, those new insights, those awarenesses come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for you to anchor into your new energy space.
Yeah. And if you get sick, it's not a bad sign. And don't beat up on yourself getting sick. Like it could be that you're curing yourself of cancer or something that was manifesting in there that's no longer has a need to be in there because you don't have a need to have that lesson anymore because you've dealt with whatever you needed to deal with. So be joyful about being sick, I say, when it comes to post leveling up. Often I'd get a virus out of nowhere. I just get a virus and I'd be like, oh, it's one of those. I must be leveling up. I actually now, when I get a virus, I go, I must have just leveled up. I thought I did.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting. I get the I can't sleep and sore neck and sore shoulders.
Ah, okay.
So that's how it comes in for me.
Interesting. It is interesting how we get it in different ways, but we get a sense of it over time, don't you? Because it kind of same thing. How could I have the same bug again? It feels the same.
My partner gets the illness.
And he's over in South America.
Oh man, can you not process physically?
Oh, and my hubby gets like, I don't know why I feel so off. It's because I'm like just it's all right. Yeah, symbiotic energies around.
And I think that, that the last thing I'll say is that, illness and wellness also exist in the same space. And illness is an invitation to embrace more wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, agree with that. I love that. I love the duality being one, if you know what I mean. Because we often talk about duality as it's not the ones, but it's actually fits together like this.
It does, so. And when you see it as an invitation, then you know where that solution is or where that energy pull is for you to direct yourself.
Yeah, you get excited instead of angsty. Yay, there's something going on that I can grow into and it's going to feel great. So how can people get onto getting in touch with you with this activation? Just through your Facebook page is the best, or your website?
My website is probably the best, thebarefootmedium.com.au. Jump on there. There's still some spaces left. And if you can't join live, jump on and we'll send you the recording afterwards. So that's still available.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never too late to do a gateway activation. You can do it at any time, anywhere. Just honor the process for yourself. Make sure you're accepting of what's going to come through. Don't expect too much or too little. Just be open and give yourself that time and space afterwards to be gentle with yourself and to realize that sometimes it does take a little bit of time for the body to catch up, but it's really super powerful, and you are inviting in natural medicine to help you heal. So, I didn't hear you then. Sorry, Leanne. What did you say?
I just said exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for wonderful
you.
sharing today. Sure that this will be a very powerful episode for people to listen to. And I'm sending you lots of love for your next chapter. I'm very excited to see how things unravel in a good way, beautiful way for you.
Yeah, thank you. And likewise for you. Lots of interest.
Thank you. I know. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.